The morning call begins right now. When Gambian President Adama Barrow came into office in January 2017, he made several promises to the Gambian people, which are, however, yet to be accomplished. Empty promises on job creation, corruption, as well as the country's poor economy. On the political scene, Barrow promised to repeal bad laws and create a level political playing field. He also promised to be only a transitional president, resigning after 3 years. This deadline is fast approaching, but for the Gambians who voted him in, there has been little progress since he took over. Some even draw comparisons with former leader Yahya Jammeh's governing style and worry that he too may use constitutional changes to rule for decades too. Ruth?
Well, Lynette, after the euphoria of the situation in Gambia, corruption and unemployment is still rampant, according to a U.S. transparency report. And yet, in a recent address to the nation, President Adama Barrow expressed his optimism about the improvement of some projects, especially in the health sector. He also welcomed the progress made in reconciliation. But the head of state is still being scrutinized, first for his broken promises, as well as for keeping Genaral Ceesay, a relative of former President Yahya Jammeh, as head of protocol.
Madi Jobarte is an activist and he joins us now to talk about this situation. Madi, thank you very much for joining us in the program today. What is driving the discontent against President Adama Barrow in the Gambia?
The discontentment against Barrow is essentially driven by his failure to honor the coalition agreement that brought him to power, in which the coalition parties, 7 of them in 2016, when they put him up as their candidate, made an agreement, even though this agreement is not eventually signed, to institute a government of 3 years. Apparently, Barrow has abandoned that idea as he is looking to serve a full 5 years and also seek a second term, which is not what was agreed. But not just that, he's also brought back a number of former Jammeh ministers and top government and security officers into his government. And the failure of reforms, particularly legal and constitutional reforms and institutional reforms, are pretty slow or not taking place as expected. And so all of these factors are contributing to raising serious discontentment in the people against him.
So, Madi, why have some people likened him to former President Yahya Jammeh?
Many people, therefore, did not see that we actually are having system change. It appears people see only a regime change. And the fact that he's engaged in other practices, the incidence of corruption, many have considered that corruption probably is more rife today than under Jammeh. Creating a foundation for his wife and creating youth movements in his name, and engaging in other forms of politicking that Jammeh was notorious of. All of those instances where people seem to see more of the same than the change that they wished for or they voted for. Certainly there has not been any arbitrary arrest or detention, but then all other practices under Jammeh appear to be ongoing.
And Madi, how would you rate Adama Barrow's government in terms of his governance so far on issues such as corruption and government transparency?
So that in terms of the second question about his the rate of the government in terms of governance on issues of corruption and transparency, it is very poor. Corruption is very prevalent. Just this week or last week it became obvious that the president or his government was issuing diplomatic passports to all sorts of Gambians and non-Gambians, and all indication shows that they are selling this to individuals. So that when you look at it, since he came to power, almost every week or so there is some scandal about corruption, involving he himself. Either he is receiving gifts from, people or entities, and then claiming that those are anonymous donors or donors who do not wish to be named. So we have several instances of that. And there have been contracts, for example, the production of the Gambia National Identity Card is contracted to a Belgian company called Semlex, which is notorious for dubious activities within Africa. So these and many cases of how government travels has become widespread, costing Gambians millions of taxpayer dollars. The purchase of government vehicles, and spending spree on ceremonies and festivals. So all of these are factors that have highlighted that corruption is rife.
And Madi, do you think that those criticizing him are being impatient? Doesn't he need a bit more time?
Whether we need to be patient or give him time, I don't agree. I'm one of the people who have been raising issues from the very first day Barrow came to power. And I remember many people would come to me and tell me, look, Madi, give this government chance. Give them time. They just came, less than a month. They inherited 22 years of dictatorship. So you cannot expect things to change overnight. And I always raise this question, what is the meaning of patience for government? When we say give government time, what does it mean? Like, how much time? Is it 1 week, 1 month? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? Is it 5 years? And so for me, what I know is the moment the president is sworn in, that very moment, that very minute, you are in charge. And so whether you inherited a dictatorship or whether you inherited a colonial government or an apartheid government, or whether there is, natural disasters all over the place, or whatever it is, you are in charge. And the expectation is, your mandate is to address the fundamental rights and the needs of the people.